Eye tracking for Microsoft Flight Sim. You may be sitting there wondering what on earth I'm talking about. Well, in today's video, I'll be giving you an update on my experiences with the Tobii Eye Tracker 5, speaking about the concept of eye tracking in Microsoft Flight Sim in general, which hopefully will mean those that haven't looked into eye tracking or head tracking for that matter might give the Tobii Eye Tracker 5 a little look, or at the very least enjoy this video, because it does make a big difference in terms of immersion. This video has been sponsored by Tobii, but under my channel charter it remains my own view. There's certainly some drawbacks to eye tracking and the Tobii Eye Tracker 5, as well as many positives. If you don't believe me, you just need to see the numerous videos I've made on YouTube with a Tobii Eye Tracker 5, and none of them ones have been sponsored. So I mean, despite this video being sponsored, I've used this product for the last few months and really enjoyed it. So let's get right into it. Before we do get into it however, please note you can get 20% off the Tobii Eye Tracker 5 with their anniversary campaign, and there's also a chance to win some awesome prizes via their sweepstake, and you can find the pilot stud link for that down below. Let's get right into it. Okay, so first of all, what is it? Well, to put it simply, it's an eye tracker for games. That includes Microsoft Flight Sim, even includes Flight Sim X and X-Plane. Basically, any game where you can look around, there may be Tobii support. Now, this video, of course, is just talking about Microsoft Flight Sim, so let's delve right into Microsoft Flight Sim. You can see, and you notice this weird little green blob floating around the screen. That is the Tobii Ghost. That's basically showing you where I'm looking. And where I'm looking moves around where I'm looking in the simulator. It's really cool. I'm going to swap over to an external camera looking at the Tobii Eye Tracker 5 so you can see what I actually mean. Basically, it's eye tracking. It kind of does what it says on the tin. This little bar that sits right in front of me and has done for the last few months, using a collection of cameras, IR sensors and other sensors, tracks my eye movement. It then scales it up and translates it into your game, in this case Microsoft Flight Sim. To be very basic with you, that means if you look left towards the left side of your monitor, it will look left on Microsoft Flight Sim. If you look right on the right side of your monitor, it will look right on Microsoft Flight Sim, up and down, and even if you move your head physically from left to right as opposed to just looking, it will move your head in accordance to your movement. I know I'm explaining the obvious there, but for those that haven't ever heard of eye tracking or head tracking or even the Tobii Eye Tracker 5, I hope that makes it clear for you. Tobii's Ghost is a good way of me showing you where I'm looking at and how the sim is acting in correspondence. It's a little black bar really that sits in front of you, connects to the bottom of your monitor via a velcro strap. That is bloody tough, I tell you. It literally hasn't moved since I first installed it. That bar then goes into your computer via USB. You then download a few applications such as the Tobii Experience app, but it basically connects to Microsoft Flight Sim right out the tin, as I'm showing you on the screen of this being used in Microsoft Flight Sim in various cases. Now I'll be going through my experience with it right now. So I'd just like to say the Tobii Eye Tracker 5 does work overall pretty well with Microsoft Flight Sim, but it's definitely suited to some types of flying compared to others. Now you might be sitting there wondering about VR and Track IR, some alternatives that allow you to move around in this fashion. I'd just like to say I don't think this is any competition to VR, it's too different. It does result in a similar look when you bring it over to 2D, but with Track IR it is direct competition, to be perfectly honest with you. I've tried both of them. The Tobii Eye Tracker 5 is just a bit more convenient, you know, you don't have to wear a hat or anything, you don't have to sort of put bits behind you so it can pick it up. It just sort of, it is really plug and play to a certain extent. Now in Microsoft Flight Sim I find it works best with aircraft that go slow and for VFR flight, aerobatics aircraft, military jets when you're looking around the cockpit a lot, and helicopters. It works okay for airliners, as you can see here in the 737, but I got to be honest, it can make it a bit fiddly. Good thing about the Tobii Eye Tracker 5, and indeed all head tracking devices, is that by a keybind you can disable and then enable your eye tracker or your head tracker. So that means if you are on an airliner and it's getting a bit fiddly, you can turn it off and just use your mouse as per normal. But to be fair, I don't find myself going around in airliners too much with the Tobii Eye Tracker 5, purely because while it does result in a more immersive look, it can be quite awkward sometimes trying to key in autopilot and you've just got to stare straight forward. I guess that explains why it's so good for aircraft where you're flying VFR, spending most of your time looking out of the aircraft, because at that point you're not going to be fiddling around with the cockpit too much. You might be fiddling around with hardware in front of you, such as your yoke or your throttle quadrant, but of course that's going to stay in the same place compared to your mouse in Microsoft Flight Sim, so I guess that's why it's better suited there. All in all, however, my experience with the Eye Tracker 5 in Microsoft Flight Sim has been brilliant. I use it all the time for when I'm making cinematics, because you've got to think, having an eye tracker in front of you keeps your head in the correct place compared to real life. Microsoft Flight Sim per default sort of locks the camera to the aircraft, so that means if you pull back on the yoke and of course pitch up, your head sort of stays in the same place. With the Eye Tracker 5 you'll feel that the aircraft moves around you quite considerably, and of course moving your head to look around in the cockpit results in a much more lifelike and immersive sort of movement, and natural eye movement to be fair. And I think that's pretty priceless to be fair. It is really good, it looks really cinematic and really awesome, and works for certain types of flying, especially helicopters. I love going around in the Capri G2 with the Tobii Eye Tracker 5 on. It looks beautiful, and planes such as the F-35, which I've been showcasing through this video, you'll have experience with heads-up displays moving around if you've been on VR, but with the Tobii Eye Tracker 5 you get that sort of similar effect, and it works really well. I'm going to swap over to my settings now. Now, don't use my settings as a benchmark. Well, you can use them as a benchmark, but don't use them as a sort of definitive setup. Because, of course, with the Tobii Eye Tracker 5, it sits in front of you. You might sit in a different space. You might have more monitors or less monitors than me. So everyone's experience in terms of setup is going to be different. So you do want to move around your settings by going into Controls menu, Tobii, which is normally right at the end, and then clicking Sensitivity. And, of course, you can adjust it there. Now there is a default setup that works pretty well. One thing I'll make sure I note is that if you want to move your head around as opposed to just your eyes, you'll need to move position sensitivity up from 0. When it's at 0 you won't get any movement there. Just use my settings, pause it, and just tell me how they are for you. They're pretty good for me. I find if you have it too sensitive, you can't get anything done because your eyes are all over the place. And if you have it not sensitive enough, it's basically not an eye tracker because you're not really moving. In terms of performance, it doesn't have a massive performance hit. Of course, it's pretty CPU intensive, so it does have, I don't know, 2, 3, 4 FPS hit, I'd say. And if you're making big eye movements like across the screen, you will receive a tiny bit of lag that is noticeable, at least on my system, so do bear that in mind. But aside from that, it is a really cool product, and I hope the video footage on the screen has shown you that. Before giving you my conclusion and letting you know about some more deals you can get at the Tobii anniversary, let's go into the pros and cons. So the pros, it is a really cool bit of kit. It certainly improves the realism in Microsoft Flight Sim if you use it properly. If you set some wild settings up, it will end up annoying you a bit more than it will actually be helping you. But back to the pros, it is easy to set up in that regard. Compared to the likes of Track IR and definitely VR, you don't have to mess around too much. It is basically plug and play. It results in a very natural experience as well, and a sort of combination between eye tracking and head tracking makes it slightly better than Track IR in that regard, because of course this is not only a head tracker but also an eye tracker, compared to Track IR, which is mostly just a head tracker. Saying that, however, there are some negatives. A few bugs occur to me at times, such as swapping over to a different window, occasionally disconnecting the Tobii Eye Tracker 5, and of course the slight performance hit I spoke about earlier. But to be fair, for what it results in, I'll take it. It's not that big of a deal in my opinion. I know this has been a sponsored video, and I know some people will be like, oh surely it can't be his own view, but at the end of the day I've got a channel reputation to uphold, so I'm going to tell you how it is without sort of, I don't know, basically just completely aligning myself with a company. That would be silly. It is good fun, but it's not for everyone. If you're not into your head moving around all over the shot, and if you don't care about that natural eye movement, then this is not for you. For me, it's perfect. As a content creator, it can make it look really awesome. It can make the simulator feel really realistic. And if you're doing a certain type of flying, it can actually be really helpful, especially on multiplayer, in military jets when you're looking around for your friends. It means you don't have to mess around with your mouse, you can just look around, and it does work really well. It's great fun in helicopters, for VFR flight, and at times in airliners. It's also good fun for when you're sitting in the back, such as in the cabin, and you want to get some realistic videos. But it's not for everyone, and I totally understand that. If you're into Track IR or VR, then you might want to take a look into it. I know it's not comparable to VR, but if you want a 2D experience, then it could be a good shout for you. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Final thing I want to say, you can get 20% off the Tobii Eye Tracker 5 right now, which in the UK takes it down from £259 UK to £207 UK. That's another negative as well. It's quite expensive, but to be fair, with that 20% off, it does become slightly more affordable, but when it raises back up, I would say that price should be a bit lower. It's great fun, and thank you for Tobii for sponsoring this video. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope I've been as balanced as possible. Be sure to like, comment and subscribe. From me today, that is all. Thank you so much for watching. Bye bye. Thought I'd end this video with a bit of funny footage from me sneezing with the Tobii Eye Tracker, so if you hate sneezes, click away now. So yes, you can see it pick up the movement there. Have a good one, guys. Bye bye.